So I wanted to do just a quick video here with regards to BTS. So for those that don't know, those that haven't seen it already, BTS have just announced their biggest ever tour to date. Right, it's going to be their biggest ever tour. One of the biggest bands in the world has just announced their biggest ever tour. We're talking 79 shows so far that have been announced so far in 34 countries. 79 shows in 34 countries, and the industry's saying that they could generate over $1 billion with this tour. Over $1 billion. So that's what's going on. The company behind BTS, Hybe, has just also sold $3.5 million worth of their own stock as well. I guess in anticipation of this, as well as, you know, with the announcement, the interest. We're going to get into all that, but the timings tell you a story and about what's really going on here. So we're going to get into this. We're going to break it down and just talk about how massive this tour really will be for BTS and for the music industry, essentially. Excuse me. So now, after nearly 4 years off the road, BTS is coming back. So for those that don't know, BTS, I believe a tour was planned back in 2020. And I believe, obviously, COVID had an impact on that tour. And then I believe some of, if not all, the band members also had to report for their South Korean military service, their mandatory service, which I don't know too much about, but I know that it doesn't matter who you are, you've got to do it over there. So I respect and appreciate that. And so it was kind of like a 4-year hiatus, I guess, 4 years off since, you know, the band had toured or had been active, sort of thing. They might have had music drop. Not too sure on that, but this tour is massive. So they've announced a global tour launching in April, in the spring of this year of 2026. And so far we're looking at 79 shows across the world in 34 different countries. We're going to try and bring it up here for you as well. But it's going to be huge. It's going to be epic. And let's share this now so you can have a look at this. So this is the article here. So BTS World Tour, the biggest global K-pop tour of all time, spans to 79 shows across 34 regions. Now, this isn't just another tour. It's basically going to be the biggest K-pop tour of all time. And when we say shows, when we say 79 shows, I don't know, I haven't looked at the full proper list, but we're not talking, like, we're talking stadium shows, right? We're talking a stadium tour with stadium shows, 79 of them. I don't know the exact venues in all the countries. There might be a couple of arenas here and there, depending on the territory, depending on the region. Apologies if I'm wrong there. It's definitely a stadium tour, right? The dates that I have seen and I do know about, they are stadium shows. So this is a huge, huge deal, and it will be the biggest K-pop tour of all time, and pretty much, you know, in every major continent, the biggest K-pop tour across, you know, North and South America, Europe, Asia. I'm not too sure about Africa, but 79 shows in 34 regions is huge. Now, this is one of the things that I found so fascinating, that when BTS announced their last tour, which was back in 2019, the CEO of Live Nation, Michael Rapino, said that 1 billion people tried to buy tickets for the BTS tour, the dates that they went on sale. Just deep that a second. So like an eighth of the world's population attempted to buy tickets for their last tour, which was 4 or 5 years ago, right? We're in 2025 now. The band went on hiatus. Like, this new amount of demand for this new tour, it's going to be epic. It's going to be insane. It's going to be something that people probably haven't seen before, right? And I think, you know, generally speaking, I think within the UK, I can speak for at least, I know probably in American markets as well, Asian music across East Asia has started to impact. Obviously, BTS has been one of those leading bands with regards to that, but it's certainly started to infiltrate charts, infiltrate streaming charts, you know, culture in general. And we're just seeing more and more of it, and I've been following it for a number of years, and it's so refreshing and nice to actually see other music from other cultures actually infiltrating, you know, UK charts and culture, basically. So, but to see it on this scale, like for 1 billion people to try and get tickets to something is insane. And that's the sort of thing you think about when you think about global superstars, right? And obviously these guys are global superstars and they have been for a very, very long time. but it is essentially going to be the biggest K-pop tour of all time. So that's kind of how many people were interested last time. So this time, obviously, we're going to expect a hell of a lot more. And we're going to expect it because analysts are, well, I mean, obviously there's a huge amount of hype after their hiatus, but analysts are basically saying that this tour could potentially generate $1 billion overall, right? So ticket sales, and we're gonna talk about that. Obviously, merch, streaming, and album sales that are tied to the tour as well. So they're saying that it could potentially generate $1 billion in revenue, and this was the article here that was talking about this. So I think it initially came from Billboard, but the Express Tribune has covered it. So BTS Reunion World Tour tipped to generate up to $1 billion as a group return to a global stage. Now, I was trying to figure this out, and I was looking at some of the numbers. So they were talking about how their previous global tour earned approximately $246 million, so a quarter, or just under $250 million, setting records for a K-pop act and making the band the first Korean group to headline Wembley Stadium, which we will talk about in a minute as well. So I don't know how many shows they did in their last tour. We could look that up. We could check that out. But to predict $1 billion is a huge statement. And I was doing a bit of pocket watching. You know, we got to do a bit of pocket watching. You know, when these tours come up, we have to do a bit of pocket watching. Do you know what I'm saying? So let's do some maths, right? Let's do some maths real quick. Because we're looking at something like, so a 79 date tour, 79 shows, and bear in mind there might be more announced, right? There might not be, but there might be more announced, just because, you know, that's how they roll the tickets out. That's how they do the sales of tickets. You know, they'll wait for a show to sell out, gauge the demand before announcing obviously a new show. So that is a potential, but let's do a bit of pocket watching with this one. So if we go to if we search up, so right, let's say they got 79 shows, right? So we do 79, just so you can see what I'm typing in here. So we're doing 79 shows, and let's say they're all stadium shows, but let's be conservative, and let's say, because, you know, for instance, the Tottenham Stadium, which they're doing shows in the UK and London, 60,000 capacity, right? I believe. So let's be conservative, say 50 to 60k capacity for each show. Let's say 50 just to be conservative, right? Let's just say 50. So 79 times 50, 1, 2, 3 is 3,950,000. Okay, so that's how many potential tickets. Maybe let's round it up, because obviously it's going to be huge, bigger shows, there's going to be multiple shows, blah blah blah. Let's call it 4 million. Okay, so let's say there's 4 million tickets being sold at this tour. It's probably more. I don't know what the figure would be. Like I said, we're just estimating. We're just doing a little bit of pocket watching here. 4 million. Okay. Now, I don't know the average price of a ticket anymore. I don't really know what that could be now. So let's put it as 4 million, right? So if we're going to be conservative now as well, if you're sat at the stadium and you're at the very top of the flipping stadium, like row ZZ, stand 180 or whatever it is, right? You look for the cheapest ticket. So again, let's be conservative with this. I mean, I was going to say let's do $100 a ticket, but to be honest with you, I feel like the average is going to average out of around, I'm going to say $200. It might be more, might be less, but let's average it out. So we're going to do 4 million, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times $200. I need to double check these, how many zeros are here, but we're looking at potentially $800 million worth of ticket sales. Let's even if we do it to 100, yeah. So it'll be what, 400 million? It'll be $400 million worth of ticket sales potentially, and that's just ticket sales, all right. So if we compare that to, you know, what the band generated off their last tour, you know, which was 246 million, we're already doubling that with 400. Right, with 400 million, and again, that's being conservative. That's with an average of 50,000 seats sold per show at $100 average ticket price, and that's excluding merchandise sales. That's excluding licensing. That's excluding albums and whatever packages they come out with for this campaign. That's excluding all that streaming, you know. So by comparison, their last global tour before the hiatus, grossing $247 million, we're 4xing it. And that last tour was 62 shows. That last tour was 62 shows, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was. So we're already 4xing it, and that just shows you the power of BTS as the brand and what they've got going for them. So it's really incredible. There's a bigger magnitude here. There's more markets, there's more cities on this tour. And they're talking about there being a 360, let me just share this as well. It's talking about there being a feature, a 360 degree in the round stage design. The immersive setup places the audience at the center of the experience while allowing for increased capacity at every venue. So this is dope as well. I believe Drake did a similar thing on his last tour. I attended to one of the Drake shows, and it was like a whole circular stage around the arena. That was an arena. That was arena there. It's not a stadium. So I'm assuming this production is going to be epic, insane. But, you know, that's where it is. That's where we're at. Fans are really buzzing about this. Pre-sale tickets, I believe, next week. General sale, I believe, next week or the week after as well. But like I said, this is huge. This is a powerhouse of a tour, powerhouse of an act, of a band, and it's going to be very exciting. But just as exciting, and I guess a little bit of the twist here, is the company behind BTS. So that's Hybe. For those that don't know, Hybe, you know, basically the company behind BTS, the record label, and they're involved in a bunch of other things as well. They've made a huge amount of acquisitions and investments over the last few years as they expand outside of the K-pop industry, the K-pop region, genre, etc. They're continuing to grow. But as this tour was announced, as the comeback from the hiatus for BTS was announced, you know, obviously their stock price has risen dramatically, and it climbed ahead of the tour and the album, and they're actually now deploying a divestment strategy. So they're selling about $3.5 million of their own stock. So we'll get into this as well. So this is Hybe. So obviously the South Korean entertainment giant plans to sell 5.16 billion South Korean won, which is approximately $3.5 million worth of shares, cashing them out after a recent stock rally driven by the anticipated return of BTS. Now, they do jump into the numbers a little bit here, but essentially what's happened is there's been a huge amount of hype around BTS returning, and as a result, the stock price has risen up, and obviously Hybe have then decided to cash in on that a little bit by selling $3.5 million worth of their stock. Now, what I found really interesting in this article was that when the group did go on hiatus in 2022, the group were, and they probably still are, Hybe's top revenue generator, and they were also the world's biggest, as it says here, the world's biggest recorded music artist in 2021 and 2020. This is what I found fascinating. So with the group's absence, Hybe's operating profit during the hiatus dropped 37.5% year on year to approximately $1.35 million, which the company attributed to, amongst other factors, the BTS temporary break. Now, I don't know numbers off by heart. I'm fascinated with numbers, especially obviously in the music world, in acquisition world, streaming world, that sort of thing. But if one act from your company isn't active for a couple of years, and your profit drops by, or your revenue, operating profit drops by 37.5% year on year, it indicates one or two things. Either the year prior to that was just a red herring outstanding year, or maybe in conjunction with, that company is extremely dependent or reliant on that one act. And I think it's fair to say that Hybe are and were, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think obviously they've created a mammoth, and obviously Hybe was, correct me if I'm wrong again, the K-pop fans, but Big Hit Entertainment initially, and they've created a machine, they've created a monster, and it's incredible, and it works completely differently to how the Western music industry works. But it's fascinating, you know, and that's why I've always enjoyed reading about this stuff. The fact that an artist can have that much impact on a company's bottom line is incredible. That said, I'm very aware of Hybe's commercial activities, their recent acquisitions and investments, and a bunch of other things across the globe which they've been involved in, and therefore I believe will become less and less reliant on the K-pop genre and on K-pop artists, including BTS. And that doesn't take away from the fact that BTS are always going to be probably one of the biggest bands in the world, superstars. But that's what it is, you know. So I found that really interesting. You know, they're basically cashing out on this hype before the tour. So, you know, it's not insider drama. It's corporate finance. But I find it fascinating. You know, this is what the real power of fandom can do, and I think that's the beauty of what BTS have built here and the company behind them, is that this is real fandom, and as a result, they've created what will be the biggest K-pop tour ever in history. So, you know, they're influencing economies. They're influencing actual economies, billions of pounds being generated all the time in economic value to South Korea and beyond. So, you know, it's a cultural moment. Their tour is a cultural moment, and for the industry, it's unmatched. It's unmatched revenue engine that they've developed here. But that's what's going on. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. There was also some stuff about Wembley Stadium and how they were supposed to perform at Wembley, but it for some reason isn't happening there. It's now happening at Tottenham Stadium in London. Let me know your thoughts on that as well, because I know BTS were the first Korean K-pop band to perform at Wembley Stadium, so they're not doing that again. And obviously there's a huge capacity difference between Tottenham and Wembley, right? We're talking 30,000 difference there. So that's, again, huge on the potential bottom line. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let me know, K-pop fans, BTS fans, if I got anything wrong, if you liked anything, what else you know about the tour, what else you know about the new music, and appreciate all the love and support. Please drop a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Peace.